We're on the range ready to sight in the Pioneer Airbow, and our target is set at the recommended zero distance of 30 yards. Now, word on targets, make sure yours has a minimum rating of 400 feet per second. We're using a target from bigshottargets.com. They're handy, they can handle a lot of shots, and the arrows slip out real easily. Now, the first thing we want to do is make sure the airbow is on safe. And it's pretty easy to do. There's a lever right in front of the trigger. Push it forward and you're hot, meaning the airbow can go off. Move it rearward and it's on safe, meaning it won't go off if you pull the trigger, and it also conveniently blocks your finger from getting in there. The second thing we want to confirm is our optics setup. We have the 20 MOA rail, and it's mounted with the floating portion forward. That gives you the maximum amount of vertical adjustment. And we have the scope rings mounted to the first slot on the Picatinny rail of that MOA rail. So everything looks good. So the process begins like this, using the CenterPoint scope that's included. Remove the turret cap off the vertical adjustment. And if you look on the knob there, you'll see an arrow that says this way for up and then the opposite way for down. We want to turn this all the way up. That would be to the left. Just go ahead and crank it all the way until it won't turn anymore, and then turn it down one full turn. One full turn. So let's crank it all the way up till it stops and then back it off one full turn. And that should generally get you in the area. From that point you can do some micro adjustments to really get it dialed in. Now, a word on arrow safety. This is really important, guys. First thing I do, and it doesn't matter how many times I've shot an arrow, whether it's the first time I've shot it or it's the 50th time I shot it, I always give a little turn to the field point just to make sure it's on there tight. The second thing, I want to check the integrity of the shaft. And I do that by just bending it. Do I hear any cracking? Do I see any splintering of it? Rotate it, give it a little bend. You don't have to really bow it out, but just give it a little bend. You can run your fingers along it and see if you feel any carbon fibers splintering. At that point, you know your arrow's good to go. Green vein up. Now at this point, I want to point out, when you're loading the arrow, it may seem kind of spongy. You're already compressing air, as you can see. So you're going to push the arrow all the way in, and you're going to feel a stop. At that point, you're not quite loaded. It can still come off. What is happening is your arrow is hitting the patent pending collar, and you have to press it into that collar to create the seal. So you get to the stop, and then you press it in, and you'll feel it stop a second time and slide into that collar. Cocking is real easy. Just lift this lever. That's it, and press it back down. And make sure your optic isn't mounted to a point where that lever's hitting. Now in firing the airbow, you'll notice also this has a two-stage trigger, which means your first stage, your trigger is going to pull, it's going to reach a stop. And when you pull through that stop, that's when it goes off. It only takes a couple of shots for you to really get a good feel for that, and it'll actually become a benefit in the field. I am now cocked and ready to fire. Well, that's pretty good. But in order to confirm your zero, you need to shoot a group, and a group ought to be at least 3 arrows. So that's what we'll do. I am really happy with that group. So I don't need any more adjustment, left, right, or vertical. You need to match your crosshairs with the impact point on your target. So if you see, for instance, you're impacting higher than you're aiming, you need to move that 0 point up. To do that, look on the vertical adjustment knob, and the up arrow, you'll see it printed on there, is in the counterclockwise direction. Just turn it a couple of clicks in that direction. These scopes are set for a 1/4 inch at 100 yards. So give it a couple of clicks, shoot another group, see where you are. So you take the turret cap off the horizontal adjustment knob, and you'll see an L printed on there with the arrow pointing clockwise. To move your point of aim to the left, just move it with the arrow clockwise. If you need to move your aiming point to the right, turn it counterclockwise. Once you're satisfied, make sure to return these turret caps